CYC viewers. We are here today with His Grace Bishop Youssef of the Southern United States, and we are going to be talking about the next election for the next Pope. Since His Holiness Pope Shenouda III's passing, we've all been very confused about how we are going to choose our next Pope. So welcome, Sayyidna. We're happy to have you here today. We're excited to have some of these questions answered.
Thank you, Sadie.
So first question we have, how is the Pope going to be chosen for this election?
The first point I like to emphasize here, choosing the Pope should be a very, very spiritual process. And that's why the Church, in all the prayers, in all the liturgies, we pray that God may appoint to us a good shepherd to shepherd us with righteousness according to His good will. So to answer your question, I ask everybody, of course including myself, to raise our hearts to God all the time, to pray that He may appoint to us the good shepherd according to His own will. But the process itself, it takes some steps. The first step, which is already finished, is to nominate the candidates. And any 6 bishops or 12 lay people from the Council of Laity can nominate a candidate. And now we have 17 candidates for papacy. And after this, there is the registering of the voters. And every diocese register 12 voters, beside all the bishops and some people from the parliament and from the ministers in Egypt, and some people who are working in media. And the process of registration also of the voters is done. After this, another process, which is objection on the voters. For example, if somebody has the right to vote but he was not registered or denied to be registered, or somebody was registered and he doesn't have the right to vote. So now we are now in this process, which is the third stage, to study all the objections for registering the voters. And after we finish this stage, then the floor will be open for any objection against the candidates themselves, the 17 candidates. Mm-hmm. Because the election committee, which is composed of 19 persons, 18 persons headed by the interim patriarch or acting pope, so the total number is 19. This committee should reduce the number from 17 to either 5, 6, or 7. And they will reduce the number based on the objections, based on the canons of the Church. But at the end, they have to come up with either 5, 6, or 7 names. Then we will call the voters to vote on these names. And the first high 3 candidates, their names will be placed on the altar to pray and to ask God to choose the right person. And then we cast the altar lot by a little child, and then the name that's taken from these 3 names will be our next Pope, God willing. So this is the process. And after this, they will announce a day for the ordination of the new Pope.
Okay. Why is it only 5, 6, or 7 that we narrow it down to?
Because, now we have like 17 names. Mm-hmm. And it will be very confusing to people to choose from among 17. So this election committee will try to eliminate any person who does not fulfill the conditions or the rules of the patriarch. Okay. And I think to have 5, 6, or 7 names is very reasonable number for the people to choose from among them, because we can know 5, and to study 17 person for everybody is a lot. But if there is 5 person, then actually people can think about them, can study each one in order to be able to vote for only 3.
Okay. Who is our interim pope right now?
His Eminence Metropolitan Bartholomew's, who is actually the Metropolitan of El Bahira. So now he is our interim pope, or acting pope.
Okay. Does he reside in the cathedral, the same cathedral where His Holiness Pope Shenouda?
He actually split his time between his diocese and the cathedral. Okay. So he stays 3 days in his diocese and 4 days in the cathedral, because he has obligation also toward his diocese.
Right.
So.
Oh, it's a tough job.
Yeah, it is, and actually we pray for him that he may lead the church in this transition successfully. And so far, everybody is impressed by his leadership, his spirituality, the way he is managing the church, actually making everybody grateful and happy that God chose him for this very, very sensitive transitional period.
Excellent. We're blessed to have him.
Yes.
What about, has the system for choosing the Pope always been the same in the history of the Coptic Church?
No, not actually. For example, if we study the history of the 117 patriarchs, we will find different ways of choosing the patriarch. In many times, they chose the patriarch by consensus. So everybody agreed on this person. In some cases, the patriarch appointed another patriarch before his departure. So he says, this person will be your patriarch. Sometimes they do it through casting a lot, like we do it right now. Now we are following the bylaws of 1957, and so the process is exactly the same when the church chose Pope Kyrillos and Pope Shenouda. So the 118 patriarch will be chosen the same way like Pope Kyrillos and Pope Shenouda.
Okay, so what about before the Council of Nicaea? How was the Pope chosen before that?
Actually, during this time, they used to choose the head of the theological seminary to be the patriarch. But also sometimes God revealed who will be the next pope. For example, Pope Demetrius, who was vine dresser. The previous pope saw in a vision that a man will come to him with grapes, and this man will be the following pope. So actually Demetrius, as I told you, he was a vine dresser. So he found grapes that grew before its time. So he said, I will take this to the Pope. So he took this fruit and went to the Pope to give it to him. So the Pope actually remembered the dream or the vision that he saw. So he said, this will be your next Pope.
Wow, that's a good story. So I have a question about going back to the voters. Who is qualified, or how are the voters selected? You said that there's voters in each diocese. How are they selected? According
to the bylaws of 1957, which we are following right now, there are some requirements. For example, his age should be 35 and up. For another thing, he should be Egyptian. Also, from Cairo, they choose a certain number. From Alexandria, certain number, because Cairo and Alexandria is considered the diocese of the patriarch. But from every other diocese, they choose only 12 persons, beside all those who were ministers and the Christian people in the parliament, and also the Christian people in the media. So these are the voters and the heads of the monasteries, the abbots of the monasteries.
Okay. You said that they must be Egyptian. What about What about Coptic converts?
This is one of the defects of the bylaws of 1957. And all of us, we know that there are some defects in the bylaws of 1957. To the extent that we discussed seriously in the Holy Synod that our new Pope should change these bylaws, because, as you said, it eliminates all the non-Egyptians. But now, after the Coptic Church spread all over the world, and we have actually some people who are Egyptian by race, but they are not Egyptian because they are born either in America or in Australia.
Right, yeah.
And according to this bylaws, they don't have the right to vote.
Right.
Besides the converts, you know. So one of the major changes that the bylaws of 1957 should change is to allow the Copts, regardless of their ethnicity. I want this article to change from Egyptian to be Coptic Orthodox. So Coptic Orthodox, whether he's American, Australian, Egyptian, Brazilian, Bolivian, wherever, he should have the right to vote.
Right, that would be a huge mark in history.
Definitely.
Also, Your Grace, you said that they have to be 35 and up to be a voter. So does that mean youth cannot vote?
According to the bylaws, the current bylaws, yes, they cannot. But I hope also they reconsider the age, because most of the countries allow people who are 18, or some countries 21 and up, to vote. So if the countries allow 18 years and up to vote, I think the church should allow also 18 years and up to vote. So, as I told you, the bylaws of 1957 need to be changed. There are many defects in it. So the point, they are Egyptians, this should be changed, the age should be changed, and some other requirement also in the bylaws must be changed.
Okay. Back to nominating the Pope. Who is qualified to be a candidate for a nomination?
According to the canon of the Church, and according to the history of our Coptic Church, of course, he has to be a spiritual person who has the ability to teach, has ability to lead the people in righteousness, and we saw in the history of the Church that the patriarch were chosen from different ranks. Some patriarchs were chosen from laity, some people were chosen from monks, some people were chosen from heads of the theological school.
Can any of the candidates nominate themselves?
Of course not, because this is against the humbleness.
Right.
If I come and say, you know what, I think I fit for this position, and our beloved Father, His Holiness Pope Shenouda, used to say, those who want does not fit, and those who fit do not want. But what happens, as I told you in the beginning, 6 bishops or 12 lay people from the Council of Laity, they nominate the candidate. But at the end, the candidate should accept, because we cannot force somebody to be in this position against his will.
Tie them up and force them to go.
Exactly. So he has to accept the nomination.
How long is the election process, usually?
If we follow the exact dates in the bylaws of 1957, it may take about from 4 months, 3 to 4 months, 5 months, something like this. But in the bylaws itself, it gives the right to the interim patriarch to extend each stage if we need to. So that's actually what's happening right now. And each stage is extended more than what's written in the bylaws. Because, again, we are choosing a very, very important position for the Coptic Church. And it is better to be slow and do it right than to do it fast and do it wrong. Every step takes its time in order to make sure that every step is done properly.
Okay. Do you think it'll take more than 1 year, or has it ever taken more than a year to select a new pope?
It happened in history. For example, after Pope Youssef and the election of Pope Kyrillos, Pope Youssef passed away in 1956, and Pope Kyrillos was ordained in 1959. So almost 3 years between Pope Youssef and Pope Kyrillos. But I hope this will not take the same time. I think that's my personal feeling. I feel it will be like, the time from Pope Kyrillos to Pope Shenouda. Pope Kyrillos departed in March, and Pope Shenouda was enthroned in November. I'm expecting will be the same time, and Pope Shenouda also departed in March, so I'm expecting around November. But this is my own personal feeling. Of course, it can be shorter, it can be longer, but this is my own personal feeling what will happen.
Okay. So as of right now, the youth cannot directly vote, but the representatives from each diocese, is there any way we can have an input as youth, or how do the representatives from each diocese give their selections?
Thank God that His Eminence Metropolitan Pachomius with the election committee felt it is very important to get the feedback not only from the youth but from everybody.
Right.
So they asked us to do like a survey in every diocese in Egypt and outside Egypt to get the opinion of the people about the candidates, and if somebody has any comments about any candidates. And in the southern diocese we already started this process, and we are collecting the names, the comments from everybody in the diocese, and we'll try to filter it, and then we will send it to the election committee according to the recommendation of His Eminence Metropolitan Pachomius and the election committee. And thus the opinion of the youth and the opinion of every single person in the diocese or in the Coptic Church will be heard by His Eminence the interim patriarch, and also by the election committee.
That's excellent. Can you tell us how we can put in our comments? How do we submit our comments or concerns?
There are some surveys we distributed in all the churches in the southern diocese, and people received these surveys and they wrote their comments, and we asked them to write their names and their contact information in case that we want to contact if somebody writes something about one of the candidates and want to examine the validity of this comment. So we have to contact the person, and if we find that his comments is valid, then actually we will send it to the election committee. And the 12-person representative of the diocese with myself will filter all these comments to make sure that what we will send to the election committee are the valid comments.
Okay, good. So we should go to our priest of our church to find out more about sending our comments?
Sure, yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, they have the surveys, they have the form itself.
Perfect. When is the last chance for us to send our comments? Is there a deadline?
In our diocese, the deadline actually was in August 1st, but we can extend it because until now the election committee did not start studying the objection against the candidates. So if somebody did not write his comments, he can go to his priest and ask for a paper, and he can for a form, and can write his comments and send it to us.
Okay. Where can we find a list of the candidates?
Actually, we posted on our diocese website.
www.suscops.org.
Exactly.
Okay.
What are the names of the 17 candidates, and now are preparing a small brochure about each one.
Oh, good.
So when you read the brochure, you have his picture, some facts about each candidate. So if you don't know the candidate, through this brochure you'll have some information about him.
You answered my next question because I was wondering if I should Google, to find out about each candidate, because of course before submitting a comment I want to read about the person.
The brochure is almost ready, thanks to St. Mary Church in Dallas. Bona Samuel prepared a wonderful brochure about each candidate. It's lacking some information, and once it is done, actually we'll post it on the diocese website, and we'll send it to all churches, so it will be accessible to everybody.
We can't wait to see it. That's exciting.
God willing, it will be very soon.
Good. So the internet this time is playing a huge role in the election of the Pope, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Great.